Synaesthesia is a short 2-minute sequence, a thriller about a woman who's sitting in a car across the street from a house. She enters the house. What she finds in that house is pretty thrilling, to say the least. Synaesthesia is written by Lee Brady, a scriptwriter who lives in Ireland. I emailed him and asked if he wanted the challenge of writing a 2-minute sequence, and he came through very well for me. I decided not to actually write the script myself. I wanted to outsource it because I have 2 young children who demand a lot of time, and I wanted to concentrate more fully on my directing and producing of the actual production. And I think it worked out really well. I emailed Lee with the parameters of the assessment that I wanted. I didn't want a long script. I only wanted a couple of minutes, a couple of pages, but I wanted it to try and be a whole narrative within 2 minutes rather than just a scene from a film. But I wanted to be able to expand that scene, if needed, into a film, which will be happening this summer. We're going to be filming some pickup shots and extending the film to include the night sequence, which wasn't submitted, along with the day sequence, so we could have a more cohesive storyline for the summer. The crew for Synaesthesia had around 3 people, including me. I was directing and producing, along with editing for post, and John Efry was my DOP. I use John on quite a lot of my projects because I work with him so often. We work really well as a team, and I wanted to direct him more during this experience. John is very professional. He already has Steadicam equipment. He already has a company that he works with as his main trade, and I knew that I could get the result using John. I also contacted Lawrence, who I've worked with before with John Efry, from Fry Film, and we ended up using Lawrence as one of our actors, the dead person at the top of the stairs, and also he was camera assistant, so he was focus pulling, and he was also lighting for the day, so he created in our night sequence a really orange glow, and then set up the light for the day sequence also, just to give us a bit more of that daylight look, which is what we had for the day sequence. So our talent was Emma Norris. She doesn't really have a lot of drama experience, but she did her GCSE in drama, and I chose Emma after having lost an actor that I had already hired for the job. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, she couldn't make it on the day, so I quickly rustled a couple of my friends together to help out. Emma stepped forward. She was very happy for us to film in her house. She had Harry with her, who is a dear little boy. He was very good throughout the whole shoot. I'm really pleased with how Emma's performance came across on screen. I could tell that she was going to be good. She looked slightly unhinged, and she really loved the experience. Thinking about synesthesia and what I wanted from the film itself, I wanted to relay to Emma the importance of emotion, especially in the close-ups that we were filming with her in the car. She needed to really think about past feelings she may have had. She's a single mum, so I kind of wanted her to draw on that frustration and almost loneliness that you can get with it, to really bring that mood across, and I think she did it fantastically. I was really impressed with her performance. So we filmed in Shaftesbury, Dorset. I used to live in Shaftesbury, and it's where Emma lives now with her 2 young children. She had Harry with her on the day, so we decided to drive up there and meet her there. I met John there, and I also drove Lawrence there. It was a really nice sunny morning, and then as soon as we were coming back, it was raining, but that added to the effect of the film. So the actual shoot day, we decided to drive up to Shaftesbury to Emma's house. We got there for around 9. Emma had just dropped off her older child to school, so it gave her time to relax, tidy the house as she wanted. We had a quick powwow We discussed how the shot list was going to go, and then decided to actually shoot it as one take or a few takes going up the stairs to the top of the stairs, in both sequences, the day and night sequence. The night sequence we didn't actually use anyway, but we were shooting it because I wanted to see whether I could cut it together to create a more cohesive look in 2 minutes. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but the day sequence worked out really well. The weather was pretty stunning. It was very sunny. We were very lucky that day. And then as soon as we went to film the night sequence, it started raining and thunder and lightning. So we went with it, and we actually had two completely different looking sequences for the day and night sequence. We were very lucky. We wrapped around 1 o'clock, 1:30, and then I took the crew for lunch at the local Greasy Spoon. They really appreciated that. And then we discussed how the filming went. We were offloading footage and generally discussing how the visual aesthetic had come through, having a preview of the clips. So it was really useful to have that after time to discuss and sort of debrief with the crew. Working with John is always a pleasure. He's very generous in his time, and he gave his services to me free of charge because I work with him, and he loves to get involved in local projects. It gives him practice, and it kind of spurs him on for other projects. I think it gives him quite a lot of energy. He's always energetic on set. He always brings a lot to it. I thoroughly enjoyed directing him, although I didn't need to direct him that much because he was very professional, and he basically knew what kind of visual aesthetic I wanted, and he knew how to get it, so I'd kind of just let him go for it and then just direct him whilst he was doing that. With the cutaways, I specifically did say what kind of cutaways I wanted, and he got those for me. It's always a pleasure to work with you, John. Some of the problems weren't really problems. For instance, John was so professional that he didn't really need that much directing, but I need directing experience, so I think next time I would be a bit more almost ballsy about going to direct him and making sure that I was involved in every single step that he was involved in. I trust him implicitly, so I really wanted him just to get on with the job at hand, but I think I will involve myself more next time in that. John already knows the ins and outs of what film needs for a good look, and he knows how to use the equipment properly, how to set up scenes properly, including lighting, which was very helpful. He gave me feedback and advice, which I always try to take on. I value his input a lot. I wanted to draw on the relationship that Sofia Coppola has with many of her cinematographers. The Virgin Suicides, which is one of my favourite films of all time, the visual aesthetic of that film I kind of wanted to translate to synesthesia. The light, the overexposed highlights, the dark shadows, kind of an ethereality to do with Virgin Suicides that I wanted to pay homage to in synesthesia. For post-production, I edited in Final Cut Pro 10 to import the footage. I then exported it to Adobe Premiere on my desktop PC, which is a lot faster than the MacBook Pro I have. I also wanted to learn how to use Adobe Premiere more, how to use the effects, graphics, and just generally start using it because it is industry standard these days. I actually do really like using Adobe Premiere, so I'm glad I did, and I will continue to improve my experience of using it in the future. I then exported it to Resolve after editing. I wanted to colour grade in Resolve, and I find it's a really good program for doing that. I already had a LUT installed in Resolve that actually gave me the visual aesthetic that I wanted. I wanted to blow out the highlights a bit. I wanted to have a kind of surreal look to synesthesia, so I decided to apply that LUT, and it brought out the greens, it brought out the yellows, it gave more definition in the black and the shadows, which I thought added the look and the visual aesthetic that I wanted to synesthesia. I then exported it back to Adobe Premiere so I could add the score on after Lawrence had forwarded it to me, and then listened to the whole thing on Adobe Premiere and then exported it to YouTube after that. Lawrence ended up scoring Synaesthesia for us after he approached me. He wanted to score it for me, having a major interest in music, and he wanted to really have a solid go at it. So I gave him the assessment criteria that I had for synesthesia, the 2-minute sequence, the feeling that I wanted for synesthesia, the visual aesthetic I was going for, and I just let him have he had a free-for-all with it. He really enjoyed it actually, and we talked about inspiration from movies that we could garner. Dunkirk being one of the recent ones. Dunkirk uses a shepherd tone, which is kind of an audio illusion. It seems to get higher and higher and higher, but never does, and it actually increases the tension. That, and also Dunkirk has a ticking clock throughout the whole thing, which also increases tension because of the feeling that you get from it, you know, time passing. And I wanted Lawrence to have fun with it and basically to go for it. So what I'd change for next time really would be to have more time in the pre-production process. So casting, I would spend a lot more time in getting a solid cast, raising a bit more funding for the casting. Emma did it completely free, which was amazing, and considering the effect that she's had on the film in general, at time of recording it's already got 1.2 thousand views, so I'm really impressed that her performance and the film actually have garnered that many views on YouTube. I'm really pleased. I really liked working with Lawrence with the score because I think that he gave the exact feeling and tension rising throughout the footage that I wanted. He used not necessarily a shepherd tone, but a way of increasing tension within the music that increases tension on screen for me. So I think that worked really well. So we filmed 2 sequences, the day and night sequence. We decided to film both sequences even though I wasn't sure that I wanted to include them in the submission, because I wasn't sure if I could cut them in a way that would really make them work well and cohesively together. So I decided in the end to submit the day version, or the day sequence, because it had a more sort of well-rounded narrative within the scene. The night sequence, when I cut it, it looked amazing. The colours worked, the warm glow behind Emma as she ascends the stairs, it worked really well. It just needs to be 5 minutes rather than 2 minutes, so I decided to actually enter the day sequence on its own because it looked just as good on its own.